Good afternoon, colleagues. I think we can get started. In case anybody's joining online, this is winter has finally arrived in Ithaca, so it's a cold day here. But I promise you, the talk today will be anything other than cold. So just first, a few housekeeping announcements. This is actually the last seminar in person of this semester. Next week is Thanksgiving break, and those who are taking this class for credit, there's going to be one more meeting after that. So no class next week, and there's one more meeting, which is just without a seminar, and there will just be a discussion in class. So I'm really excited today to end this semester seminar series with a little bit of a different format. As you can see, we have 4 speakers today. We have a panel. We always hear perspectives on global development issues. Usually it's one speaker, one issue. Today, we're really trying to tackle multiple perspectives and multiple issues at the same time. So I'm going to be introducing these guys in a little bit, but what we're hoping to get is really different perspectives on issues that are pertinent to what we're going to be discussing today. And the top title of the talk is going to be Achieving Food and Nutritional Security in the Era of Climate Change. 2 quick headlines that are events that have been in the news lately, other than the elections. The first one is that yesterday, according to the UN, we reached 8 billion people on Earth. 8 billion with a capital B. The last time we added 1 billion people was in 2011. So between 2011 and now, we've added an additional 1 billion people. And not to date myself too much, by 1974, we had half the population on Earth. I was already alive. We are 4 billion people in 1974, just to show you how quickly we are increasing the population on this planet. These people need food, they need to be fed, they need to wear clothes, they need cars. So the strain on our resources, it could not be any more than before. COP27 is taking place now, almost concluding. A lot of key talks and conclusions coming out of that. What I'm hoping we can discuss here today is this nexus between food systems, food security, and climate change. We know that on one end, agriculture is adversely affected by the adverse effects of extreme weather events resulting from climate change, droughts, diseases, flooding, frost. At the same time, we also know that agriculture contributes a very, very big component of global greenhouse emissions, 15 to 27%, depending on whose estimates you believe. And those estimates, by the way, depend on what you are including, the delivery of the food or not, the trucks, or are you just talking about primary agriculture? We have here a very esteemed panel of practitioners, middle career professionals who are here as part of the Hubert Humphrey program that are going to be sharing perspectives on this very pertinent topic from their own countries. And I will just introduce them very briefly, but they will each have a chance to say who they are and what they are doing. My role here is to be just a moderator for this discussion and hopefully stimulate some ideas for the Q&A session as well. So starting from the right, on your left, I guess, is Carlos Morais from Brazil. Roza Aiylchieva from Kyrgyzstan, and then John Babadara from Nigeria. Sanlath from Laos. Good. I'm going to be giving them questions, and they will take maybe a round of maybe 3 questions that I'm going to give to them. They will give their quick responses, and then we'll open up this topic to discussion. So the first question is, in a way of introducing yourself, can you say who you are and what your work is and how it pertains to this particular topic? Starting with you and moving to the outside.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. My name is Carlos Magno Morais. I'm from Brazil, but I come from the dry region, Brazil. Brazil is huge. The people can listen Brazil, thinking football in São Paulo and Rio. But I come from the corner of Atlantic, and I'm working for 15 years in NGO in the food security and food sovereignty with the family. Basically, my work is support family farms, around 2,000 family farmers for transition from the conventional agricultures, more ecological and agro-ecological agriculture ways. You promote some technology, social technology and farm markets for put these people in the markets and help these people for it's like an escape for the hunger, escape for the inequality social. Thanks.
Thanks. My name is Roza Aiylchieva. I'm from Kyrgyzstan. This country is situated somewhere between Russia and China. So I'm an economic development consultant in Kyrgyz NGO Dairy Chamber. Our organization promotes that in the context of my country, of course, that agro-ecological run farms are more profitable and more sustainable than traditional industrial practices.
Hello, everyone. I am John Babadara. I am a development sector practitioner working and leading community-based agriculture and rural development initiatives in Nigeria. For a couple of years now, I have been doing this in collaboration with government agencies like the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, that is the equivalent of USDA, and the international organizations who are operating in Nigeria in the agriculture space. Essentially, my projects and work in this couple of years are focused around food security and nutrition, rural development, and providing enterprising solutions to rural poverty. And I'm glad to be here today to discuss this with you. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jin, and I come from Laos. So back home, I am environmental and social consultant. So what I do is I work with local communities, business, and government across like projects across different industries. And in the projects I work with, climate change and food securities have been key elements in the planning and decision-making for project development. So sometimes many projects, when they have their developments, it can have conflict with food securities because they have to use lands. So in these cases, it is an obligation for projects to taking account food securities of the communities in their social development plan. So that is what I have been working with related to this topic.
Thank you very much. So the first real substantive question is, can you share with us examples from your country on how climate change is impacting agriculture and food systems? And maybe in answering that question, can you maybe distinguish between the impacts on commercial agriculture versus smallholder? And you can give some examples related to that. So let's start again with you, Carlos.
Good. No, first of all, this is important just to see this information. Brazil have at least 3 kinds of agricultures. The big agricultures that the people know when we speak about Brazil, the people speak about agricultures, but just the big agriculture, industrial agricultures. But you have more, the small agriculture, smallholder agriculture, family farmers, and you have others, it's indigenous agricultures. This is ancestral moods for make agriculture in Brazil. So this is important because when you listen about Brazil, you just listen about the big agricultures. In my role here in Cornell, we just announced that Brazil have more types of agricultures. It's just so important. And I come from the big areas, have 25 million people in the drought region in Brazil. This region is the most affected by the climate change. Now I can see these effects in the real life of the farmers. One information is that the family farmers, whole Brazil, 50%, half of the farmers, family farmers Brazil, is located in Northeast, in these dry lands. This is important. These people now is so affected by the climate change. One information so just for pop up in my mind is because when you speak about the big agriculture in the pandemic, for example, example, in the last 2 years, some countries are affected by flooding, but in Brazil, the big agriculture in the last years exported around $120 billion in food, the big agriculture. At the same time, Brazil increased the numbers of people in hunger. In starvation is 30 million people. In food insecurity, it's 125 million. So big agriculture, big exportation is not mean big life. So good life, people have food. No. In Brazil, this is different. You have a big gap between family farmers and big farmers. This is, I think my time is gone, yeah?
Yes.
In case of Kyrgyzstan, I would mention that animal husbandry is very traditional for our nation for many, many centuries. And now farmers cannot use a traditional agricultural calendar because they cannot predict when will be rainfall as their ancestors did before, because our summers are hotter now. It causes water shortage, and it causes landslides, and heavy snowfalls kill their herd in a single day. So this is what effect climate change has on my country. And if we are talking about the how smallholders are affected and what is the difference between them, only difference is that bigger farms, commercial farmers are enjoying more access to state and financial resources because they can easily apply for subsidies, for cheaper, longer loans. They can insure their businesses, and smallholder farmers, they cannot protect their rights. They don't have this lobby. At the same time, 95% of national agricultural product is comes from smallholders in my country. Yeah, John, what about you?
Yeah, thank you, Carlos and Rosa. In the context of the impact of climate change in Nigeria, I'd like to start by stating that the agricultural system is rain-fed, heavily reliant on the rainfall. And in my country, depending on the region and the part of the world where you live, 40 to 70% of the food that we consume is produced by the smallholder farmers. However, in the last couple of years, there has been sharp drop in yield productivity, and also there have been hike in food price. And this is occasioned by extreme weather events like flooding. Very recently, more than half of the country was submerged in flooding. Probably some of you saw this in the news. Also, we have a situation whereby because of increase in droughts and the encroachment of the certification across the country, there have been increase in farmers and herders clashes. Because these pastoralists, they are constantly migrating from places to places in search for water and grasses for their cattle. And then by extension, this has led to conflict, which also had negative impact also on food production. So this, right now, the challenge confronting all of us, the humankind with the increasing population, is how to sustainably feed the world. And they're speaking on how the smallholder farmers handle this in relation to the commercial farmers. The commercial farmers, most of the time, are protected by the market actors, because you look at, let's talk about things like insurance, subsidy, even many climate resilient technologies are easy for the small commercial farmers to adopt because they have the resources. The market is more friendlier to them than the smallholder farmers. But on the side of the smallholder farmers, a group of people that I've worked with for about 6 years now, have worked with over 100,000 smallholder farmers. One thing that is very common is that the cost of procuring climate resilient technologies is very, very expensive, substantially very high for the smallholder farmers. So which means that they are kind of disenfranchised or unable to actually adapt to the extreme climate events. You talk about seeds technologies, irrigation facility, insurance, and the likes. The smallholder farmers at this time are not capable of adopting these technologies to mitigate the impact of climate change on their production activities. So there's a lot that still needs to be done. There are so many initiatives that are trying to reduce the impact, but however, there's still a lot of grounds to be covered. Yeah.
Thank you, John. I feel like Roza, John, Carlos already talking the points that Laos also faced similar challenges under climate change. So Laos is linked as highly vulnerable countries under climate change because we are situated in the location that is high risk, but we have low adaptation capacities. So Laos is characterized by smallholder farmers. 72% of the population relies on agriculture in some forms. So under climate change, we really feel people really feel the impacts because in the past 3 decades, we experienced intense floods and droughts. In the past 5 years, every year we have floodings in August, September. In fact, this year alone, apart from COVID, apart from economic crisis, when farmers about to harvest their rice, we have floods. So now the productivities decrease a lot, like both quality, quantities. So now farmers begin to stock their rice. They don't sell their rice in the market because they have low productivities. This make rice become very expensive in Laos, and rice is the most staple food in Laos. According to the study, if the climate change continues, the productivities of rice will decline between 5 to 20% by 2040. So Laos really need to invest on increased productivities of agriculture, similar to countries.
You can hold on to that, Mike. I'll start from that end with my next question. It's clear from all the comments that have come so far that climate change is impacting agriculture across the world. Can you speak to what actions are being taken either by government or private sector to mitigate against climate change or help farmers adapt to climate change? Maybe also share some examples of what is working and what is not.
Okay. Yes. So ironically, in Laos, agricultural sectors are affected by climate change, but it's also the top contributors to climate change. And sometimes many efforts to combat climate change also have like implication on food securities. For example, in Laos, the most popular mitigation approach promoted by the government is increasing forest cover to 70% of the land areas in Laos. So these conservation efforts also use agricultural lands. So it has implication on food securities, like Dr. Ruiz said this morning. And yes, so one good example I would like to present is an agroforestry approach that being promoted in Laos. So large areas of production forests in Laos have been degraded by agricultural activities and illegal logging. So in order to restore the lands, one approach being introduced is using agroforestry approach with many intentions, restore the land, providing opportunities for farmers to do intercroppings, to raise their livestock in the plantation, and also create economically viable source of incomes. So these have been promoted in Laos, and it seems like very successful. It's not perfect, but it can be used as example of yeah.
Thank you. Here from Nigeria.
Thank you, Chin. That's commendable what your country is doing. So also in my country, in Nigeria, commendably, the federal government of Nigeria has been showing some leadership in the approach to climate change and then the adaptation and then mitigation strategy. Very recently in 2021, the federal government enacted a bill that is called the Climate Change Act. And then this bill also led to the establishment of what we now call the Nigerian Climate Change Commission. So this commission has a responsibility first to establish a fund that will mobilize support from both private sector actors and international partners to see how we can finance our climate change and mitigation strategies. And then in this period, the government also renewed its covenant to the Paris Agreement to reduce emission by 20% by 2030. This is unconditional. And then they also give a conditional promise to also reduce emission further by 40% if we get the required support. And when you put this together, that is about 60% reduction in emission generation from Nigeria only. And then this has been the government initiative that they've been pursuing. Then also the commission also went further to establish what we call our climate change action plan. So this action plan contains the entire framework on how the government wants to continue to monitor and assess climate change impact in Nigeria, how they want to work with its international partners and the private sector actors to ensure that both from the industrial sector and other critical sector of the economy reduce their emission. So these are some of the things that has been done recently, and I love what the government is doing. And then this has actually shed more light and put this discussion on the spotlight in my country. Because most of the time when we discuss issues like this, sometimes it stops at the academic level or probably few industrial actors get to hear about it. But when government at the local, regional, and national level begin to take concrete steps like this, it means that this can trickle down even to the remotest community. So this is commendable. And then, but however, when I look through the action plan, one thing I would love the government to do a little bit more is to provide more provide more clarity on some aspect of the action plan. Things like for example, the approach the government is trying to adopt is to use an hybrid approach of carbon tax and also emission trading to achieve those targets. So, but there is no clear explanation on how the government wants to engage with private sector actors, especially the industrial areas, on how the framework specifically on how the emission trading will flow. I'm also looking at things around the carbon tax, the tax base, and also looking at what exactly will be the exchange or the incentives to bring more private sector actors on board. Then lastly, probably it's an oversight or it's by design, my sector is excluded from the action plan. So there is no concrete steps on how the agricultural community will be engaged to incentivize the actors, the smallholder farmers and other value chain actors to also contribute to this emission reduction. I guess probably the argument would be that the emission generation from this angle is not quite very high, but nevertheless, we need to get everybody involved and ensure that no one is left behind in this. So I think, Roza?
Yeah, as you know, my country is very small and developing country, and we are not big contributors of carbon greenhouses emissions. So still, my country is committed to incorporate implement adaptation and mitigation plans to our legislation and policies. And the overall budget of this plan is about $10 billion, and 40% of them we are providing by own resources, and we need some assistance from international community to fulfill that gaps. And I would love to share a very good example, which comes from a private sector. So what I like in this case is comes from a local level initiative, and I found it's very sustainable because it's proven by the practice of farmers. So Kyrgyz farmers who are members of my my organization, they developed a new technology on making silage. So the trick is that we use the same amount of corn and some other herbs as in a traditional way, but after 45 days, it shows 5 times more nutrition. It doubles milking, and it reduces costs for making this, doubles milking, and it is more profitable to shift to this type of food. And at the same time, it keeps it helps to Kyrgyz livestock farmers to shift from a pasture-based stock raising to stall keeping. So it means that we can keep our pastures more safe, secured, and this is an example how small initiatives can contribute to this idea. And but it takes time for small initiatives to find its place and to show commercial profitability of this. But I hope in the future my organization will try to show globally that it's a very innovative technology. Carlos?
My country is a little bit more bigger than the Kyrgyzstan, yeah. The secret is not see the moderator for the time. I have to say that Brazil, 7 out of 10 people in Brazil are feeding by the family farmers. This is important information. So the agribusiness in Brazil is important by exportation, GDP, but for food that go in the table, the responsibility, 70% come from family farmers. As my fathers produce cheese in the semi-arid region. Brazil have a strong program for low carbon agriculture for the big farmers. It's important program, but this trick is the same time they have this program for low carbon agriculture. The big farmers continue advance, continue go in this more lands, and every day in Brazil, every second, 24 trees are cut down. Every second in Brazil. This is terrible, and this big part of this is from more frontiers for soy and livestock. This is the information. In 2003, the government of Brazil it starts a program from climate adaptation that the civil society, my organization, and the networks that I'm part, you organize, you receive in the 14 years around $500 million for implement these programs, named 1 million of cisterns in the rural areas. This program is so simple. Building cisterns in the family farms. 9 of 10 people, family farmers in the semi-arid region, have a cisterns. The cisterns are simple, and the people can collect water, harvest water for the roof, and storage the water, around 6,000 gallons for the drain season. Right. This is the program. And this is important because this 60 years ago, we have a severe drought in the semi-arid. 1 million people died. 1 million. 5 years ago, we have a severe drought. No one died. This program is so important for this. It's simple technology. You know, this program was awards for the UN by the efficiency and the cheaper. So it's, I know, $2,000 per cisterns. It's not about the cisterns. It's about the change mindset. And this is most important because the people, the farmers doing the cistern together is not the gift, you know, the people is part of this. And this is the impact is more bigger than the budget, because this changed the mindset. And you say in Portuguese, convivência com o semiárido means coexist of the biome dry land. So how can the people look behind and say, learning for the ancestors, the indigenous people live there for centuries. And this is the big trick for the technology. How can you handle social technology? Simple, cheaper, and the technology can scale up because in Argentina, in the north of Argentina, you'll be the more than 5,000 cisterns. Same, because the Argentina, the semi-Argent, the Chaco, Gran Chaco Americano is the big dry lands in Latin America too. So I just put in the table this experience because it's a success experience in your life because it's handled for by civil society. It's not the government. Government put the money, budget, but we handle all the projects, and it's transparent. If you take one security society number in the 100, 1,200,000 families in the semi-arid receive the cistern. If you took one number security society, if you give me this number in my phone, I can just put this number in the system and I see the GPS, the geographic location, and I can just download this photo. In 2007, when the people receive this technology, I have this photo in the system. It's so transparent. I think this is the civil society, the Brazil civil society is strong, and this go in this direction. And now you return.
Excellent. You hold on to that, right, Carlos? I'll have one more question before I open up this conversation to the floor. We all have been following the events at COP27 that's taking place in Egypt now. And I do know your new president got a very big reception there, almost a standing ovation. I want to ask each of you in 1 minute or less to say, what are the key highlights, a key highlight that's coming out of COP27 that is of particular relevance to your country? What do you think is coming out of that? I know 1 minute is not enough, but I want to...
it's not enough. Of course, no. So I have to say that Lula won the election 2 weeks ago, and this changed completely the scenario, the whole scenario about climate change, because Brazil is a hot spot of climate change. The Amazon forest is the most important forest in the world. So the Amazon forest is compared to the ocean, it compared to the glacier for the control this climate change. So because Brazil is this place that have the president that destroy the Amazon forest. Now Lula, it's like Lula, the Brazil come back for the game, the climate change. One thing I have to say is the carbon markets now come up. You know, the carbon market is the new coin, carbon market. But carbon market have a three problems, ethical problems that keep the companies the same level of pollution. But in Brazil now, you can sell credit for this company have the net zero. This is a three problems for Brazil need face now, because Brazil have a civil society strong. If Lula have some agreements, of course the civil society reaction. But I think Brazil, absolutely. Brazil will take advantage for that, because you need just development. You need, but you need pay attention to this. You need strong, you need put more, strong disagreement for, force this company, these countries developed like US, decrease your emissions. It's not keep the emissions and you keep the forest in Brazil. You need just these balances, because beyond climate change, you need climate justice, and this you need put your minds.
Excellent. Sorry. No, that's all right.
Of course, Kyrgyzstan is smaller than Brazil, and, but melting glacial waters and mountainous rivers and disappearing of water will affect about 1 billion people in a continent. So my expectations would be if what the parties on COP27 on a very high level can develop practical measures, practical mechanisms, how to emphasize investment in green technologies, green finances, because in my country 60% of emissions comes from energy sector. So my idea would be good if those who are investing traditionally, they will have obligations to convert to green technologies and maybe provide some affordable loans, like a program to smallholder agriculture actors.
Nigeria.
Thank you, guys. So Nigeria at COPs, Nigeria, the giant of Africa,
We're comparing.
So Nigeria led the African countries to sign what we now call the Africa Sustainable Commodity Initiative. It's a declaration where the African leaders affirm their support to sustainable growth sourcing of very important commodities like cocoa, like rubber, like palm oil, like coffee. Because when you look at what is happening in Brazil, we don't want this to happen in Africa. So we want to keep our forests, and that is why this declaration is very important. And this declaration will help us to protect our natural resources and our forest lands. And also at COPs, Nigeria emphasized the need for increase in investment in climate resilient technologies. And I'm inviting everybody here and people online to come to Nigeria and invest in our ecosystem. We are very enterprising, we are very innovative, we love technologies. So if you open up the space and then you share your technology with us, we will embrace them and we will use them adequately to reduce our emissions and also to protect both the environment in the present and also the future generation. So the COPs has been very successful for Nigeria. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, John. Now, Laos, simply beautiful.
It's not about size, right? It's a beautiful country. Okay.
Yeah, so actually, I am start thinking about building a rain storage in my house, listening to Carlos. Thank you. One highlight from COP27 for me is the launch of food and agriculture for sustainable transformation, which is an initiative to mobilize finance for agriculture. For agriculture, especially, they target the most vulnerable countries. So if this is successfully implemented, I think Laos will really benefit because based on my experience working in circular economy, where we identify circular opportunities to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, we find that agriculture and food sectors have huge opportunities to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, such as restoring food waste, improving productivities. These present opportunities for Laos. And the most important thing is, based on the study, it is commercially viable. So if we can use these resources and tap into that potentials, it's gonna be good. And maybe we all can do business in this area.
Laos is open for business, right? Okay. With that, I would like to open up the discussion to the floor. So if you have a comment or question, just raise your hand. Maybe you can tag it to somebody specific. If you don't, I will do that. We have about 10 minutes. So let's start with Edith.
So, in Africa, it's more with the banks. We're paying attention so now,
Yes, I will repeat that question just for the record and for those who didn't get it. She's asking, you all have these fabulous plans that are being developed by different governments, but we do know the importance of gender, and because women and children are some of the key stakeholders and producers of agricultural food in developing countries. Any of these strategies gender responsive, and to what extent they are? And I will ask maybe Who wants to go first? Probably two people are asking you. John?
Yeah, thank you for that very excellent question. And then let me leverage on what just came out of COPS, the African Sustainable Commodity Initiative. It's a declaration that I see that's going to be a game changer, because you can't talk about sustainability without talking about gender inequality, social injustice, and then the rights of children not to be involved in labor. So the declaration definitely have components around eliminating child labor in our agricultural space, that's first, and also to protect the right of everyone and to have equal access to both social, economic, and political resources. And when you also go further and look at the very critical sector that the declaration is specifically focusing on, the cocoa, the rubber, the palm oil, and the coffee industry. These are industries that are infamous for exploitative activities, whereby farmers do so much, but they earn very little because the supply chain is skewed against the farmers. But these are some of the issues that the declaration is going to address. So what we will do further is that people like myself and many other vibrant organizations in Africa, and including yourself, we put pressures on both the private sector actors in the space and then the government agencies to ensure that this declaration and many other amazing policies that we have, that they are effectively implemented so that everyone can benefit from this. And if we do this right, I think in the next couple of years, there's going to be a lot of amazing changes in the space. So I'm very hopeful and I'm looking forward. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Now, I want to take as many questions as possible. I might circle back to that if there's no other questions, but was there a hand here? Yes, Dev, yes.
Yeah, so I think there's broad agreement on a solution set moving forward to address food security and mitigate climate change. Of course, highly variable according to the country that you're in. But we also see this kind of discordant dialogue, like a struggle between different sets of solutions, right? And what I'm wondering, and we see that same disagreement here at Cornell, right?
Mm-hmm.
For people arguing with other people. Do you see those same disagreements in your own countries? And if so, which one do you think will become more successful, say, 20 years from now?
All right. Who wants to tackle that one? Not all of you at the same time. Roza?
I like this question because it gives me opportunity to tell me more about the example of my country. So I think we are challenging by the fight between big industries, big corporations. They are trying to occupy that niche in Central Asia, and I think. Sorry, the question was that. Can you just?
So what are the different philosophical camps in your own country in regards to addressing security climate change challenges?
Yeah.
So these big companies have very good lobby, so they can influence our political agenda, but they are very far from a real story. So they don't take into account our uniqueness of the land, of the environment, of the agricultural tradition. And now we are forced to join bigger markets. We want our government wants to make our us to become a supplier to Eurasian Economic Union. And I don't think this is a good idea because we are too small to provide. And just to reach this, we need to damage our existing a new system of agro-ecological farmership. So I think now this is a big challenge, and let us see what will happen. So I hope, for example, during the pandemic, it's shown that smallholders were more sustainable. It provided when borders were closed, they provided our food security. So I hope these cases will help to decision makers do more smart decisions.
Mhm.
So this is in perspective of my country.
Sure. Shin, you want to say something quickly?
Yes, I would say, it is my belief to start from local communities, provide them, empower them, provide them opportunities to develop their potentials, to look at their potentials available, the resource available, and build from there. Because for me, I come from smallholder farmers, and if we are providing opportunities, education, trainings, we really can sustain ourselves and our neighborhoods. So yeah.
Okay. We have time for one more question. Yes.
Presentation. So amazing. And I have just one question for Carlos specifically. You talk about the technology, and right now there are a lot of artificial technologies in the market. It's like a candy store with a lot of type of candies, and it's that the farmers are not choosing any type of candy in some cases. And it's like the adoption rates and most of agricultural technologies, different crops, climate change technologies are not taken into consideration. Can you talk about change of the mindset? How do you achieve that in the specific technology that you were working? And what are the lessons that you can tell us to other countries, for example, mine of El Salvador, what we can learn about this mindset change, what we can learn in order to achieve increase in the adoption rates.
Wow, this is a great question. Thanks.
I love the question.
Yeah, just my face.
You have 1 minute.
Wow. So the agricultures have 14,000 years. Agricultures, the first women that provide these seeds and put in the land in the earth. 14,000 years. When I arrived here in Cornell, I just go in the garden and I discovered that in the garden have part of the Cayuga heritage. And I discovered that Cayuga grown beans, corn, and pumpkins together. Central America, the Incas, Aztecas, and Mayas grow the same. The name is milpa there. In the semi-arid region that I come, my grandfathers grow the same. I ask you, what's the more smart agriculture? Is this that connection without borders? Is a farmer rationality or a drone that can mapping everything, but the technology belong for one company. The software belong from Bill Gates, that one of the most bigger land farmers in this country. I think this question is, this technology help who? Who handles this technology? Of course, from the semi-arid, you can help all the semi-arid region. You have this connection of this corridor, dry corridor, semi-arid Brazilian, Grand Chaco American, but you have connection with some countries in Sahel because the semi-arid regions more arid. Unfortunately, the semi-arid, by the climate change, it's become more arid, and you lost a lot of things, unfortunately. But of course, you can help. And at 6 p.m., you have the TED Poll. You can talk about more of this. Thanks.
Oh, yes. That's a good plug in there for TED Poll talk later on. I think we're running out of time. So I would actually want to ask these panelists to give one closing comment. And I'm phrasing this in the form of a question. So if you could send a message to a future audience, imagine you're 2050, you need to send a tweet. I don't know if Twitter will exist in 2050. That's aside. What message could you send to the future generation pertaining to this balance between food systems, food security, and climate change? What could you tell people of the future from what you know now?
So at
Twitter length.
Twitter. So if I can send a message, the tweeting from the next generation in Cornell, in this room, I say, if you have still 2 cars, you don't understand, you don't understood the climate change.
Yeah.
This is the question, because it's easy to speak about climate change, of course, because here you have conditions, fresh water, car, infrastructure, but speak about climate change in that place that there are no sanitation, water, food. This is hard. You need just, my organization have a lot of, efforts for convince the people or change these words. Thanks.
Thank you. Excellent. Roza?
I think that my message is universal, and it's I would prefer to send to the past generations and future, and this would be live in harmony with nature.
Thank you. Powerful. JB?
Yeah. My message would be what the previous generation did make a difference. Now it's our time. What you do, whatever you do, will also make a difference. But you have to decide the kind of difference you want to make.
Thank you.
My one is very simple. Learn to connect with the food you eat.
Can you expand a little bit?
Yes. So many of us sitting here, maybe we eat veggie or maybe we eat many things, but we don't know where the food come from. So in order to be independent, whatever happens, it is very important to know where the food come from.
Thank you very much. Please help me give a round of applause. You have been an excellent panel, and I would like to say that 2 of the speakers, I think Carlos and JB, are giving TED talks later on tonight. Where is it?
Man 102.
In Man 102, and there's going to be more details on this. I appreciate your time, and thank you very much for your participation. All right.
It's a technical